Centuries ago, in the heart of West Africa, a warrior princess defied tradition, fought for her freedom, and founded an empire that shaped a nation. Her name? Yennenga. Her legacy? Legendary. Join me to uncover the untold story of the fearless horsewoman who became the mother of a kingdom, and explore how her courage and defiance still resonate in modern culture, from films and music to art and activism. This isn't just history, it's the story of an icon. Welcome to Ladies of Lore, the podcast where we explore the incredible stories of the most badass women of mythology and folklore from all around the world. I'm your host, India, and I am very happy to be back after a little break last week. It did feel very weird, really, not having a full episode to drop for you all last week, but I did have an amazing 30th birthday weekend. And I was actually gifted a few books by some of my very, very wonderful friends that will help massively with making the podcast. And the topic of today's episode is actually one that I read in one of those very books, and I just found the story so captivating that I wanted to share it with you all. But I am very sorry. I was asked, are you going to apologise for having a week off? So this is that. I am really sorry that I had a week off, but I'm back. I missed you all very much, and this is now so ingrained in my life that if I don't do it, it feels very strange. So that's what you've all done to me, so thank you very much. But I hope you have had a lovely week and that you are excited to be back the same as I am. Today we are travelling to West Africa to discuss the powerful and inspiring tale of Yennenga, the warrior princess of the Maasai people, and a founding figure in what is now Burkina Faso. Her story has been kept alive in oral tradition for over 900 years, and there are, as always, varying versions of the story, but all can agree on one thing, and that is that her impact on Western Africa is undeniable. Yennenga's story is steeped in both history and legend. She was no ordinary princess, trained in warfare, skilled in horsemanship, and fiercely independent. Her journey from a royal daughter to rebellious warrior who defied her father's control is a story that still resonates today. Yennenga is more than a symbol of military might. She was a leader who contributed to the birth of one of the most important kingdoms in African history, the Maasai Empire. In this episode, we'll trace her journey through time, from her legendary acts of rebellion and love to her profound influence on the political and cultural landscape of West Africa. We'll also have a look at how her story has evolved and why she continues to be such a significant figure in modern-day Burkina Faso and African feminism. So, sit back, relax, get a little snacky. What have I had so far? I've had baby bells, I've had seafood sticks. This time, I'm going to go for some nice salted pretzels, and let's dive into the life and legacy of Yennenga. Imagine a time when kingdoms stretched across the savannas of West Africa, ruled by mighty kings and defended by fierce warriors. It was a world where the sword and the spear decided the fates of empires, and the horizon was dominated by the thundering hooves of cavalry charging into battle. In this landscape, there lived a princess unlike any other, a woman who would defy her destiny, break free from tradition and forge her own path. Her name was Yennenga. But Yennenga wasn't just any princess. She was a warrior. From a young age, she mastered the skills of combat, javelin throwing, archery, and, most famously, horseback riding. Her father, King Na-Gabiogo, ruler of the Dagomba kingdom, raised her to be a soldier, not a queen. In fact, she was the one that led armies into battle for him. A sight to behold, really, when you think about it. Charging ahead with her golden armour gleaming in the sun, her horse racing through the dust like a tempest. She was known as the Brave One, which was a title given only to the fiercest of warriors. But beneath the armour, Yennenga was more than just a fighter, and she had dreams of her own. While her father wanted her to remain by his side and to serve as his most trusted warrior, Yennenga longed for something different, something no amount of military victories could give her. She wanted a family, a life and a love of her own. For years, she fought for her father's kingdom, but each battle only deepened her yearning for freedom. She wasn't born to follow someone else's plan for her life. She asked her father if maybe she could have a little bit of time away from battle, time for herself, to be a bit more like her friends and maybe even go on to find some love and have a family of her own. Her father, however, was very protective of his daughter and valued her as a warrior. She was the most vital cog in his battle machine. And so when she asked him for this, he refused. He said, "Nope, you are going to stay here and you are going to fight for me. And that is it. That's what you're here for." Yennenga was furious at this and decided to use more than words to show her father how strongly she felt about this. As she played the long game with this one, not going to lie, she actually planted a whole field of okra and she tended to the crops and she let them grow and watched them prosper. And her father was so proud of her and so proud of this field, and he told anyone that would listen how wonderful it was and how wonderful his daughter was. And this was when Yennenga simply let the field wither and die. And her father was shocked, and he asked her, why would she do this? Why would she do such a thing? Why would she let this field grow and prosper, only to let it die? And to this, Yennenga replied, "This field looks how I feel. Here I am. My ovaries are withering and dying. My soul is crying out for someone, and you don't even care." And this, sadly, did not change her father's mind. Instead, it just made him worry more about what she might do and what extremes she might go to get what she wanted. So, he locked her up. He said, "You are my warrior, and that is all you will ever be, and I'm not even going to give you the chance to be anything else." Now, you know from previous episodes that these female characters don't settle, they don't sit around, and the story does not end here. Ever the cunning warrior, Yennenga hatched a plan quickly to escape, and with the help of one of her father's guards, she made the decision that would change not only her life, but the future of an entire people. Dressed in men's clothes, Yennenga saddled her loyal horse and fled her father's kingdom under the cover of darkness. She rode through forests and across rivers, leaving behind the life of war that she had known for so long. It was all she'd known. Her escape was no small feat. It was an act of defiance and a break from tradition that had kept her bound to the kingdom and to her father. After days of riding, Yennenga found herself lost in a dense forest. But fate had something extraordinary in store for her. And it was in this wilderness that she met Riale, a hunter who lived a simple life, far from the politics and warfare of the Dagomba court. Riale had no idea who this mysterious rider was, but he saw in her something special. And as for Yennenga, she saw in Riale not just a man, but a chance for a new life. Riale took her in and nursed her back to health, and in time, they fell in love. And it wasn't long before Yennenga gave birth to a son, a child who would change the course of history. They named him Uedrogo, which means stallion, a fitting tribute to his mother's prowess as a horsewoman. Uedrogo would go on to found the Mosai Kingdom, one of the most powerful empires in Western Africa, an empire that traces its lineage back to the warrior princess who dared to choose her own path. Yennenga's story didn't end with her escape from her father's kingdom. Instead, it became the beginning of something far greater, and her legacy still lives on today in the streets of Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, where statues of Yennenga on horseback remind everybody of the woman who refused to let anyone else decide her fate. I love this story, and I do think that if her father had used his critical thinking skills, he might have thought that maybe if he just let her go and have a family, she might make some more. She might actually make him some grandchildren who could also be cogs in his big war machine, but I suppose he was probably scared that she would just run off and never come back. And Yennenga isn't just this mythical, legendary, historical figure confined to the past. Her story has inspired generations. From traditional African folklore to modern music, literature and film, Yennenga's name truly echoes through the ages. She's a symbol of bravery, independence, and the power of choosing your own destiny. And like I said, I really do love this story so much. And it's also just so interesting to me, as traditionally we see stories of females breaking away from the traditional values of getting married and having children to do more non-traditional things like go to war or study or further themselves in ways beyond marriage and children. But Yennenga kind of flips this on its head and says, no, I want to be a lover and not a fighter. And that's really interesting to me. It's really powerful because it just shows that women can do both. We can be both. We can choose either or both. And Yennenga is testament to that. So like I've said, Yennenga's influence extends far beyond her role in the founding of the Mosai Kingdom. Her legacy has been an inspiration for centuries. So now we know the story and who she is. Let's take a little look at the legacy of Yennenga. Yennenga's influence extends far beyond her role in the founding of the Mosai Kingdom, as I've said. Her legacy has been a source of inspiration for so many, symbolising strength and independence and the importance of individual freedom. The Mosai Kingdom, which her son Uedrogo founded, grew to become one of the most powerful and enduring political entities in West Africa. Over the course of several centuries, it expanded its influence through trade, diplomacy and military power, maintaining its independence even during the colonial period when much of Africa was being partitioned by European powers. And Yennenga's impact goes far beyond politics. She's revered not only for her role as a warrior, but also for her role as a mother, the matriarch of a royal lineage. And the Mosai people, who make up the largest ethnic group in Burkina Faso, see Yennenga as their cultural ancestor, the one who laid the foundation for their society. Even today, the Mosai royal court honours her as the origin of their royal dynasty. Her story also holds significant meaning for women in Burkina Faso and across West Africa. Yennenga's refusal to be confined by traditional gender roles and her insistence on controlling her own destiny has made her a symbol of female empowerment. In a region where patriarchal structures have historically been dominant, Yennenga's story is a reminder that women have always played crucial roles in leadership and governance, even when history has tried to sideline their contributions and erase them from the narrative. In Ouagadougou, the capital of Burkina Faso, her image is immortalised in statues and monuments. One of the most famous is the statue of Yennenga riding her horse, spear in hand, which serves as a powerful reminder of her role in history and in the founding of the nation. Her likeness can be found in murals, in public art, and even in educational materials, ensuring her story continues to inspire new generations time and time again. But as we all know, with mythology and folklore, those interpretations change, and there are varying versions, as I mentioned before. So why don't we do a little exploration of those different versions of the story? Now, Yennenga's story has been passed down through centuries, primarily through oral tradition. And as with many figures whose stories are transmitted by word of mouth, her tale has evolved, like every single woman that we've explored on this podcast so far. With each different storyteller comes a different embellishment and a different interpretation, and while the core elements of her story do remain the same, so her skills as a warrior, her flight from her father's control, and the birth of the Mosai kingdom, different versions of her story have surfaced, and depending on the cultural and political climate of the time, they read slightly differently. In the early centuries, when the Mosai kingdom was at its height, Yennenga's story was told with a focus on her role as a mother of a great empire. She was revered as a royal figure whose actions ensured the continuity of the Mosai dynasty. Through this period, the emphasis was on her maternal role and the significance of her son's founding of the Mosai nation, and that kind of makes sense. But during the colonial period, when West Africa was under French control, her story took on a new dimension, and the narrative Yennenga became more focused on her act of rebellion, of escape, and flight from her father's kingdom, and this was seen as a metaphor for resisting oppression. Yennenga was transformed into a symbol of defiance against colonial rule, representing the desire for independence and self-determination. In more recent decades, as movements for women's rights and gender equality have gained momentum, Yennenga's story has been reinterpreted yet again. Today, she's often seen as a feminist icon, a woman who broke free from the constraints placed upon her by a patriarchal society and forged her own path. Her journey has come to symbolise not just national identity, but also personal freedom and gender equality. She's celebrated for her courage, and she's celebrated for asserting her right to choose, a narrative that resonates so strongly with modern feminist audiences. This evolution in her story demonstrates the power of historical figures to take on new meanings as society changes. Yennenga is no longer just the mother of a kingdom. She's a symbol of empowerment and resistance, and a figure who transcends the boundaries of time and place. Yennenga's legacy has been honoured and represented in various facets of modern culture, particularly in Burkina Faso and across West Africa. Let's have a little look at where we might see snippets of Yennenga today. And we'll start first with music. The Burkinabe reggae musician Sana Bob has a song named after Yennenga. And in this song, he uses her story as a symbol of strength and leadership. His music emphasizes themes of resilience and empowerment, linking Yennenga's legend to contemporary social and political struggles in Burkina Faso. And when you think about it, this isn't that different to when Yennenga's narrative was changed and emphasis was placed on different parts of it to reflect the changes that were going on in Western Africa in the wake of colonization. And that's just testament to how myths and mythological figures can be used and adapted to reflect current social affairs. And there's also Burkina Electric, who are an electronic music group from Burkina Faso, and they've referenced Yennenga in quite a lot of their performances and their songs. And the group blends traditional African rhythms with more modern electronic music. And they've invoked Yennenga as this symbol of Burkinabe culture and history throughout their performances. Again, that sort of highlights just how important and central Yennenga is to the culture of Burkina Faso. She is so important to them. A little bit like how La Llorona is so important to Hispanic culture. Yennenga also shows up across literature. Yennenga, A Love Story, was written by the Burkinabe author Patrick G. Ilbudu. And in this novel, Patrick reimagines the story of Yennenga and her love for Riale. And it does explore the same themes of independence and love and cultural identity, but it makes it a little bit more accessible to contemporary readers. Not only this, but this novel focuses on the emotional and psychological dimensions of Yennenga's journey, which gives it a little bit more of a fresh perspective on her legend. And I've, of course, added this to my long list of books to read, and maybe you should too. Look at me, dishing out further reading, like I'm your teacher. But it is really good to read books from other cultures. I think we can get so caught up in, what's famous on Book Talk and things like that, but we're missing things. We're missing really important cultural explorations like this book. So it is on my TBR, which I mentioned at the very start of this podcast. Have I read anything off of it? I'm not going to answer that question. No comment. But Yennenga has also shown up in various children's books across Western Africa, all of which tell the story of Princess Yennenga. And their aim is to inspire young readers by highlighting her courage and her leadership. And these books help to introduce children to their West African folklore and encourage them to be proud of their heritage and where they come from. Yennenga's influence also extends into art, and she is the subject of many statues and monuments, one of the most prominent of which is the one I mentioned earlier in Burkina Faso. This statue depicts her on horseback, symbolising her legendary skills as a warrior. It serves as both a cultural landmark and a reminder of her importance in the foundation of the Mosai Kingdom. Artists throughout Burkina Faso and neighbouring regions have created murals and paintings of Yennenga, portraying her as the strong, independent woman that she is. These artworks often incorporate traditional symbols and vibrant colours to celebrate her legacy and link it again to more contemporary themes of empowerment and resilience. And I have put some links into the show notes to some of these murals and pictures of the statue so you can take a little look at that yourself because they're very impressive. Yennenga has been the subject of numerous visual arts exhibitions in Burkina Faso, particularly during cultural events like the Pan-African Film and Television Festival. Her image has been used in posters and paintings and sculptures that are part of larger exhibitions exploring African history and mythology. She's really everywhere. She's extremely important in West African culture. And Yennenga has had such a large impact on film and television that the Pan-African Film and Television Festival that I just mentioned is one of Africa's most prestigious film festivals, has a top award named the Etalon de Yennenga, which is the Stallion of Yennenga. And this award is given to the best African film and represents excellence in African cinema. So by naming this award after Yennenga, it connects African cinema to its roots in cultural pride and heritage and storytelling. Now, this is the most prestigious award in African cinema, and this award has only elevated Yennenga's name to continental fame, and it associates her with creativity and excellence and pride in culture and heritage. For filmmakers, winning this award is a career-defining achievement, as it connects their work to the spirit of Yennenga, bold, innovative, and impactful. Several films and documentaries produced in Burkina Faso retell Yennenga's story, either as a historical drama or part of cultural programming. The documentary, The Legend of Princess Yennenga, explores her life and the founding of the Mosai Kingdoms. Through these films, the legend of Yennenga continues to inspire discussions on national identity and cultural heritage in Burkina Faso. I haven't watched this documentary, but I really would like to see it. I think we don't do a very good job of shining light on other cultures in this country, and I'd love to see more documentaries about mythological and historical characters such as Yennenga on British television. I feel like we're really missing the mark on learning and educating ourselves on other cultures. And that's kind of part of why I wanted to do this podcast, not only to help other people learn, but also to learn myself, because I'd never heard of Yennenga until a week ago. And I've really, really enjoyed learning about her. And that's what I'm really passionate about. And I hope you guys can tell how much I love learning about these things. And I love telling you all about these people. So, with that in mind, if there are any women from mythology or folklore that you want to tell me about, leave it in the comments below. Tell me all about your favourite mythological woman. Filmmakers in West Africa have also used Yennenga's life as inspiration for films that showcase her as more of an African heroine. And these films not only bring her legend to a more global audience, but they also reflect the ongoing conversations about gender roles, leadership, and historical narratives in Africa. We can also find reference to Yennenga in several comic books and graphic novels aimed at more younger audiences, and these sort of modernise her legend and present her as more of a superhero-like figure, drawing on her skills as a warrior and a leader. And the vivid illustrations in these comics make Yennenga's story even more engaging and relevant to modern audiences, but they also emphasise her strength and her bravery. And, much like the children's books I mentioned earlier, they help create a connection to roots and culture amongst African children. Yennenga has also had a massive influence on traditional dance and theatre. During cultural festivals in Burkina Faso, Yennenga's story is often performed through traditional dance and theatre. These performances typically combine music, poetry, and storytelling to really bring her story to life, emphasising her role as a cultural icon, because she is an icon. I think every woman we've discussed I might have called an icon at some point, but she is truly iconic. There's even been ballet performances based on Yennenga's life, which combine this dramatic storytelling element with traditional African dance. And these features are so popular during national events or part of sort of international cultural showcases. And I think it's really cool. And there are some videos of these on YouTube. Again, I'm going to direct you to the internet to find references. I'll pop them again in the show notes. But honestly, it's really, really cool. I love this blend of cultures with sort of the ballet and the traditional African dance. It's brilliant. And finally, references to Yennenga are also found in fashion, with some designers in Burkina Faso using the figure of Yennenga as inspiration for fashion collections. And they incorporate traditional Mosai patterns and fabric, emphasising a modern reinterpretation of Yennenga's legendary attire. And the aim of these collections is to showcase national pride and the strength of Burkinabe women through fashion. And there's only one word I have to say about that, and that is slay. So, as you can see, Yennenga's legend has permeated pretty much every aspect of modern culture, particularly in Burkina Faso and West Africa. She's celebrated in music, literature, art, film, and fashion, symbolising strength, independence, and this massive sense of cultural pride. That's the one thing that really runs through all of these facets of society that Yennenga has touched. It's this pride in culture, in heritage, and in where the society has come from. In modern day Burkina Faso, Yennenga isn't just a figure of the past or a mythological woman. She's an active presence in cultural and political landscape. Her legacy shapes national identity, especially in terms of women's empowerment. And perhaps the most profound way that Yennenga's story lives on is through the values she represents: courage, independence, and the power to defy expectations. These values are not just part of Burkina Faso's history, they are woven into the fabric of its society today. Yennenga's name is invoked by activists, politicians, and everyday people as a reminder of what is possible when we refuse to be limited by the role society assigns us. In a world where gender equality remains a challenge, Yennenga's story continues to inspire women to rise above societal constraints and pursue their own paths, just as she did centuries ago. Yennenga's story is a timeless tale of bravery, defiance, and the pursuit of freedom. From the battlefields of the Dagomba Kingdom to the formation of the Mossai Empire, her influence shaped the history and culture of West Africa in ways that continue to resonate today. Her legacy as a warrior princess, a mother of a kingdom, and a symbol of independence has made her a national icon in Burkina Faso. She represents not only the birth of a powerful kingdom, but also the enduring spirit of resistance and self-determination. Yennenga's story is one that transcends the borders of time and place, continuing to inspire people across Africa and beyond. And hopefully, you feel a bit inspired. They call Yennenga a mother figure, and mother is mothering, so I hope that you feel inspired by her tale too, because I definitely do. In today's world, Yennenga's legacy serves as a reminder that courage and leadership are not bound by gender. Her story reminds us of the power of women to shape history and break barriers, and her example continues to inspire movements for gender equality and empowerment across the continent. And I think that nicely wraps it up there. Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of Ladies of Law. It's been lovely to be back. I have missed you all very, very much. Very, very, very much. I won't do this again, I promise. I have got a holiday coming up in November, but part of that holiday, I'm going to Salem. I'm going to Salem, Massachusetts, where the witch trials happened, and I am hoping that I might be able to find someone to do an interview with. I'm doing Boston, I'm doing Salem, so I'm going to try. There's lots of history going on there, so if I can get a little interview on the show, I think that would be really cool. So bear with me, but I'm going to plan better for my holiday, so I'll make sure there's episodes in November when I'm away. But I really hope that you've enjoyed hearing all about the story of Yennenga. If this story has moved you even a little bit as much as it's moved me, please be sure to subscribe, leave me a review, and share the podcast with someone who might want to hear about some cool mythological women. Because the more the merrier. Thank you again. I appreciate you. and I can't wait to bring you another amazing story next week. Take care, and I'll see you on the next one.